Inside the human gut, Escherichia coli is an essential part of our normal aerobic flora. It helps synthesize vitamins and keeps harmful bacteria in check. Yet certain strains of this exact same species possess the genetic hardware to trigger massive, fatal hemorrhagic outbreaks. To understand how a helpful commensal transforms into a deadly pathogen, we have to examine its baseline physical structure. Microbiologists use the bacterium's outer architecture to classify, or serotype, different clinical strains. This diagram illustrates the antigenic arsenal. The O antigen represents the somatic cell wall. The H antigen forms the flagella for motion. The K antigen is the protective capsule. Labs use these structures to pinpoint strains. O157-4H7 directly maps these specific antigens. Ultimately, E. coli acts as a modular genetic platform. The core cellular chassis remains the same, but its capacity to cause disease is dictated by the acquisition of mobile genetic elements, like virulence plasmids and phages, that snap into its genome. When E. coli acquires specific genetic weapon systems targeting the gastrointestinal tract, we group them into diarrheogenic pathotypes. Each pathotype is a specialized variant programmed for a precise method of host tissue destruction. This classification grid organizes the 6 major diarrheogenic categories: EPC, ETC, EIEC, EHEC, EAEC, and DAEC. Each acronym defines the specific mechanical approach the bacteria uses to attack the gut. The clinical presentations divide into 2 distinct camps. One group induces massive fluid secretion, resulting in watery diarrhea. The other group aggressively invades the tissue or destroys blood vessels, leading to bloody dysentery and systemic damage. The severity of an infection often traces back to specific environmental vectors. In developed nations, severe clinical outbreaks are frequently linked to contaminated produce like lettuce and spinach, or undercooked ground beef. These sources can carry strains with an infectious dose of fewer than 100 organisms. Identifying a bacteria merely as E. coli provides an incomplete picture. Differential diagnosis requires pinpointing the exact molecular mechanism it uses to breach human cells. Down at the surface of the intestinal epithelium, we can see exactly how the watery pathotypes force the host to expel fluid. Enteropathogenic E. coli, or EPEC, is primarily associated with sporadic outbreaks of pediatric and infantile diarrhea. This rendering shows EPEC's physical attack. It uses bundle-forming pili to latch on, forcing host actin filaments to polymerize into a pedestal. Notice the surrounding attaching and effacing lesion. Destroying microvilli eliminates the gut's ability to retain water, driving severe osmotic diarrhea. Enterotoxigenic E. coli, or ETEC, takes a completely different approach. ETEC is the #1 cause of travelers' diarrhea, and unlike EPEC, it doesn't physically restructure the host cell. It relies strictly on chemical warfare. Here, ETEC secretes 2 distinct toxins. Heat labile toxin, or LT, raises intracellular cyclic AMP levels. Heat stable toxin, or ST, raises cyclic GMP. Together, these signals force the epithelial cells to dump chloride ions and massive amounts of water into the gut lumen. This comparison chart highlights the core difference between the 2 main watery frets. EPEC relies on physical restructuring via A&E lesions, while ETEC uses toxigenic signaling interference. The resulting massive fluid loss looks identical on a clinical chart, but the genetic software executing the attack is entirely distinct. Other pathotypes abandon secretion entirely, opting instead to physically occupy and destroy the host environment. Enteroinvasive E. coli, or EIEC, produces a bloody dysentery that is clinically indistinguishable from shigellosis. Looking at the top panel, EIEC uses a plasmid-mediated virulence marker antigen to actively invade and rip through the mucosal lining, destroying the host cells from the inside out. Because its genetics closely mimic Shigella, EIEC shares a key laboratory feature. Unlike almost all other E. coli strains, EIEC is characteristically non-modal. Then there is entero-aggregated E. coli, or EAEC, a strain notorious for causing persistent, long-lasting diarrhea, particularly in infants and HIV-positive patients. The bottom panel illustrates EAEC's signature maneuver. It binds to the epithelium and to other bacteria in a dense, stacked brick formation, creating a thick biofilm that is incredibly difficult for the immune system to clear. By aggressively invading tissue or cementing themselves into persistent biofilms, EIEC and EAEC ensure their survival through physical occupation. The most clinically severe entry in the matrix is enterohemorrhagic E. coli, abbreviated EHEC or STEC. EHEC triggers severe hemorrhagic colitis, but the true danger lies in its systemic complications, specifically hemolytic uremic syndrome or HUS. HUS is a triad of acute kidney failure, hemolytic anemia, and a low platelet count that can rapidly become fatal. This systemic devastation is driven by a single acquired virulence factor, the Shiga toxin. Shiga toxin infiltrates host cells and enzymatically cleaves a specific bond in the 60S ribosomal subunit. The 60S subunit is a critical component of the cellular machinery responsible for synthesizing proteins. Once disabled, protein synthesis halts entirely, and the host cell undergoes rapid necrotic death. This mechanism creates a critical clinical contraindication. Administering standard antibiotics to an E. coli patient induces bacterial stress and lysis, which violently releases massive stores of Shiga toxin into the bloodstream, drastically increasing the risk of HUS. The modular nature of E. coli means these traits can combine. This panel details the O104H4 strain, a hybrid that merged EAEC's stacked brick adherence with EHEC's Shiga toxin production, resulting in highly lethal outbreaks. EHEC sits at the apex of the pathotype matrix, proving horizontal gene transfer can engineer a localized gut microbe into a pathogen with systemic lethality. Because the consequences of misdiagnosis are so severe, clinical laboratories have to translate these microscopic genetic differences into visible, macro-scale assays. To first confirm the genus, technicians look for a standard biochemical profile. E. coli are gram-negative bacilli, or GNB, that test positive for the catalase enzyme, negative for oxidase, and positive for indole production. This diagram shows standard isolation media. Most E. coli ferment lactose, appearing as pink colonies on McConkey agar, but EHEC strains like O157 have a metabolic blind spot. On sorbitol McConkey agar, or SMAC, it fails to ferment sorbitol, growing as distinct colorless colonies. Looking at these actual culture plates, the stark contrast between the bright pink lactose fermenters and the pale non-fermenting EHEC colonies provides an immediate warning. Exploiting these specific metabolic fingerprints allows clinicians to rapidly isolate dangerous strains from harmless background flora. Today, phenotypic cultures are backed up by genotypic detection. Polymerase chain reaction, or PCR, is used to directly amplify and identify exact virulence genes, like STX for Shiga toxin or AJGR for aggregative adherence, confirming the pathotype at the DNA level. This summary table aligns the entire E. coli pathotype matrix. It connects the clinical presentation of each strain directly to the mechanical virulence factors and toxins that drive the disease. This clinical snapshot diagram illustrates the full diagnostic cycle. We trace the pathogen from its environmental source, identify its pathotype via culture and PCR, anticipate the clinical features, and deploy targeted treatments, focusing on fluid resuscitation and carefully avoiding contraindicated antibiotics in hemorrhagic cases. E. coli is not a single disease, but a spectrum. Effective intervention demands that we treat the specific genetic payload the bacteria carries, rather than just the species name on the chart.